Here's one that really works, Ubuntu MATE 18.04. It's a long-term support release. It'll be supported for 3 years. It uses Linux kernel 4.15 and the MATE version 1.20. It comes with the full LibreOffice suite version 6.0.3.2 and Firefox Quantum 59.0. When you look at the resources required, it's in the bottom half of all of the Ubuntus. If you notice, it uses a little more in the desktop than Ubuntu, 391 megabytes versus 362. But when you get to the Google search page with no search underway, it uses 600 megabytes versus Ubuntu's 678. And when a YouTube video is playing, it uses 812 megabytes versus 846 for Ubuntu. Installation is the same as I showed for Ubuntu in an earlier video, so if you're unsure of that, take a look at that video. The thing to remember is that in every Ubuntu from 17.04 to the present, you don't need a separate swap partition. It will produce a swap file of about 2 gigabytes. Before I go to the familiar welcome screen, I just want to take a look at what is available in both the minimal and the normal installations. And I have a copy of each on different partitions on external hard drives. Now this is what's in the minimal installation. I'm going to start with accessories. You have the character map, the Grandpa Archive Manager, MATE Calculator, MATE Font Viewer, MATE Search Tool, Plank, that's the Plank Doc, Pluma with the text editor, and Take Screenshot. Under Administration, you have the Login window, Network, Printers, Software and Updates, Software Boutique, Software Updater, Time and Date, Users and Groups, and Welcome. Under Graphics, you have the Eye of MATE Image Viewer and the MATE Color Selection. Under Internet, you have Firefox Web Browser. Under Office, you have the Atrial Document Viewer and the MATE Dictionary. Under Preferences, you have About Me, Additional Drivers, Appearance, Assistive Technologies, Bluetooth Adapters, Bluetooth Manager, Displays, File Management, Keyboard, Keyboard Shortcuts, Language Support, Main Menu, MATE Tweak, Mouse, Network Connections, Network Proxy, Onboard Settings, Pop-up Notifications, Power Management, Preferred Applications, Screensaver, Sound, Startup Applications, and Windows. Under Sound and Video, I installed Simple Screen Recorder and I'm currently using it. Under System Tools, you have the Kaya File Manager, GDebi Package Installer, Log File Viewer, MATE Disk Usage Analyzer, MATE System Monitor, MATE Terminal, and Power Statistics. Under Universal Access, you have the Onboard Screen Reader and the Screen Magnifier. And then you have the Control Center, which is common to both the normal and the minimal installation. Now this is a normal installation. I'm going to start with accessories. You'll find all the accessories that I listed with the minimal installation. Likewise, all the administrative tools. Under Graphics, in addition to Eye of MATE and MATE Color Selection, there's also Shotwell and Simple Scan. Under Internet, in addition to Firefox, there's also Thunderbird Mail and Transmission, the BitTorrent client. Under Office, in addition to the Trio document viewer and the MATE dictionary, there's also the complete LibreOffice suite. Under Preferences, you have the same items that came with the minimal installation. Under Sound and Video, you now have Bracero, the disc burner, Cheese for taking pictures with your built-in camera or webcam, Rhythm Box, music organizer and player. I installed Simple Screen Recorder again, and you have the VLC media player, which came by default. System Tools is again the same as in the minimal installation, as is Universal Access and the Control Center. As for the famous welcome screen, it appears automatically when you first start Ubuntu MATE, but you can also find it under Administration. Here's Welcome. And there's a very thorough introduction. Scroll down to learn more. I'm not going to read all this, but if you're unfamiliar with Linux or Ubuntu MATE, this is a place to find out about it. There's also a little animation. Getting started. Under Updates and Extras, you can check for updates. You can install additional codecs. Blu-ray support, additional screensavers, additional themes. Now under Install Additional Themes, I can install additional themes and icons such as Numix and Arc. Let me look into that. Install, applying changes. The installation is complete. Let me click on Change Appearance and see what I can find. These are the traditional Ubuntu MATE themes. Where are the others? Here's Arc, here's Arc Dark. Here's Arc Darker. Here's Numix. I'm going to try Arc Darker. And you can see the little rounded corners are gone. Now I could get additional wallpapers, but there are plenty of wallpapers already. So I'll look into that in the future. Then there's community, forums, social networks, chat room, and of course here's the famous software boutique. This has a lot of the most widely used Linux applications. I'm not going to go into all of them now, but you'll find that Ubuntu MATE does not come with another software installer outside of the terminal itself. So I always install software, which is GNOME software, and Synaptic Package Manager. And as you can see, I have two things in the queue up here. So I'll go there and I'll click on Apply Changes. So that's complete. I'm going to close this screen. And that takes me out of the welcome screen, so I'm going to try to get that back. You see, this is the Arc Darker theme. So after software, you have ways of getting involved, development, translations, etc. You can even buy a laptop with Ubuntu MATE pre-installed. These are from Britain. I don't know if they're available in the United States or other countries. Or desktops. And then the usual t-shirts and other sorts of things, stickers, etc. If you're really generous, you can just donate and not ask for anything in return. And then here's a browser selection. It comes with Firefox. You could also remove that if you wanted to. It gives you a little garbage pail here. I usually install Google Chrome, but I'm not going to do it now. So that's the welcome screen. The first thing that I noticed when this version of Ubuntu MATE opened was that the default desktop is different than it used to be. It used to be the traditional GNOME 2 style desktop with the menu bar at the left up here. However, this new default desktop has all of the utility and functionality of the old default desktop with some more modern features. It comes with the brisk menu instead of the menu bar. And of course, the advantage of that is that it has a search function. I'm going to search for disks, and there's GNOME disks. By the way, a little about the brisk menu. It comes originally from Solus, but it's been improved quite a bit recently. If you right-click on an item, such as the MATE terminal, it gives you the option of pinning it to the favorites menu or pinning it to the desktop. So you may ask, well, how can I pin it to the panel? Well, that's quite simple. You simply drag and drop it to the top panel. It takes a little bit of practice, however. If you drag it straight up, it doesn't work. You have to drag it around to the side and then over to the top panel. Since I switched to the Arc Darker theme, there seems to be something missing from what we might call the system tray. So I'm going to go into Themes again, and I'm going to go down here to the Control Center. Click on Appearances. I'm going to go back here to Ambient MATE. Now you notice I now have a little gear symbol up here, which had completely disappeared when I went to Arc Darker. And that's important because that lets you shut down, tells you a little bit about the system. Lets me go to system settings, but I'm already there. If I want to shut down, I can click here. Of course, I really don't want to shut down, so I'm going to cancel that. So there seems to be some advantage of keeping the existing ambient MATE theme rather than switching to Arc Darker. Now maybe some of the others still retain that little gear. For instance, let me try Numix. No, the gear is gone. But if I click on the network symbol, I get the gear. I see. So now if I go back to Arc Darker, which I like because I don't like those rounded corners, instead of that gear symbol, I have this little network symbol, or what I think of as a network symbol, and that's the equivalent of the gear symbol. All right, so I'm learning as I go. Anyway, as I said, this desktop retains the functionality of the traditional one, even though it has this expanded system tray, even though it has the brisk menu at the top. At the bottom, it still has the show desktop items, so that if I open a couple of items and click on that, minimizes everything that's open, and if I click on it again, they appear again. So it still has show desktop, and I should have left those open. It still has a little taskbar down here which shows you what's open, and by clicking I can minimize and unminimize those items too. And on the far right here, it has a Workspace Switcher, and you can see a little symbol here. It's not very detailed on these little thumbnails, but it shows you roughly what's in your workspace. For instance, I have a simple screen recorder. And you'll notice that the taskbar here only shows the open items in the present workspace. So if I go to an empty workspace, doesn't show anything. So that's the default desktop. Now if I go to Preferences, I can go to MATE Tweak, which I can also get from the control panel, by the way. If I want to show desktop icons, I can make those reappear, but I really don't want to. I don't like that. I could show desktop icons and just take off home and mounted volumes, and then I could show any other icons I wanted, so maybe I'll leave it that way. And under panel here, this is the famous panel switcher. Now this default desktop is familiar, and I'm going to save that because I've made some changes to it. I'm going to call it Mine, M-I-N-E. Could call it anything you want. Now I'm going to look at a few of the others. Here's the Contemporary. It looks a lot like the familiar one, but there's a little item up here, a MATE Tweak, which is similar to what you get in GNOME. A little application menu. It doesn't have very much in it, but that's very similar to what you find in GNOME. But notice here I can also change a few things. I can enable the dock, I can enable HUD, heads-up display. I can enable the pull-down terminal. That's what you get if you press F12. I can enable keyboard LEDs. Now that I really like, because My keyboard doesn't have any indicators to show whether number lock or caps lock are on. I don't know what this other is. I thought it was scroll lock, but when I press on scroll lock, nothing happens. However, when I press on caps lock, that turns red, and when I press on number lock, that turns red. Now, some of these features don't show up with every desktop. I'm going to unenable the dock right now. This is the way the contemporary menu looks, and I'm going to leave those keyboard LEDs in place. Cupertino menu is, of course, a reference to Apple. And you automatically get the dock with that. So as you can see, Enable Dock checked itself here. And this has the look and feel of the Apple dock. This has a icon style menu, and one nice thing about it is that it's categorized: accessories, administration, education, graphics, internet, office, preferences, sound and video, system tools, universal access. Very nice. And then it has this little local menu up here, tweak menu. Let me open the Pluma text editor for a minute. You can see that I have the heads-up display enabled here, and that moves the menu up to the top. That's not available in every desktop, but it apparently is available in Cupertino, among others. So I'm going to go back here. I've already looked at the familiar menu. That's where I started out. But if you'll notice one thing, the heads-up display is not available in the familiar menu. So now I'm going to go to Mutiny, which is of course a play on words with the once prevalent Unity desktop, which has been more or less discontinued, although you can still download it in Ubuntu if you want. Unity makes my open items disappear, but they're there. I can click on this. This is Pluma, and if you notice, the heads-up display is enabled in Mutiny, as it was in Unity. And if I click on the Alt key, I get the heads-up display. There's a little search bar. Here I can, for instance, type in save, and it takes me to file save and file save as, and it also takes me to documents, unsaved documents. So that's the heads-up display. Press on escape to get rid of that. Now if I click on, which is for some reason the GNOME famous footprint, I get that same icon-based menu again. So this is much more similar to the original Unity than it used to be with this enhanced menu. Just to see what happens if I go back to Appearance here. Let's say I go back to the Ambient MATE. Now that bear paw from GNOME turns back into an Ubuntu MATE symbol. So that explains that. However, I like Arc Darker. So I'm going to go back to that and just put up with the strange bear paw there. One thing I have here in Mutiny is that I can close and open items by clicking on the icon here on the dash or whatever they call it. But one thing I don't have is little tooltips that tell me what I'm looking at. What if I right-click on something? LibreOffice Impress. It seems to have appeared out of nowhere. I didn't add it. Of course, you can change these. And this thing that looks like a folder down here is MATE Tweak. So let me go back to that if I can keep it open. So that's Mutiny. Now Netbook. It's just one panel at the top. It has the brisk menu. It has Firefox and some other things that I've added that I would have expected might disappear. And then it has a place here to which I can add launchers. And it has the desktop LEDs that I checked to keep open, and Bluetooth, and of course here's my screenshot. And this is the network manager, battery, sound, and this is what I would have expected to be that little gear, but isn't. And of course my time, date, and calendar, all in one panel. But you notice here there's no heads-up display here. The menu is in the application window. Now, Pantheon, I believe, comes from elementary Linux. Here I have the brisk menu again, and the expanded system tray. Now I have the dock at the bottom. Plank, which is the dock itself. Show desktop, a little time and date, Firefox, the Kaya file manager, the control center, Pluma, simple screen recorder, and MATE Tweak again. Redmond, as you might expect, looks something like Windows XP or Windows 7. It has what I would call the Mint menu. This is the first MATE menu I ever became familiar with because I first encountered the MATE desktop in Linux Mint. I think it was around Mint 11 that I first looked at it. And of course they're now on Mint 18 and they're about to come out with Mint 19. So this is what I would call the Mint menu. I never particularly liked it. It's a little too complex for me. I have to click on all applications to get to what I want, although once you do that, it opens there by default. Then of course it has the launchers, the taskbar, every single partition on my external drive, the little icons which I enabled, this expanded system tray. And finally we have the traditional menu, which is the GNOME 2 style menu, with the menu bar, applications, places, system, If I open Pluma, it doesn't support the heads-up display. It does retain the keyboard LEDs and the expanded system tray, and of course it has the show desktop icon, the taskbar here at the bottom, and the Workspace Switcher. But I'm going to go back to my menu, which is Mine. And it doesn't support the heads-up display either. Now, of course, you can tweak these and make your own derivations of these standard products, but this is one of the features which makes Ubuntu MATE one of the most user-friendly of the Ubuntu flavors. And if I go down here to Windows, animations are enabled by default. I'm going to turn that off. Window snapping is also enabled by default, and I like window snapping, so I'm going to leave that on. Undecorate maximized windows, I'm going to leave that off for now. Do not auto maximize new windows. I'm going to leave that checked, although there are times when I would prefer to have them automated. The window controls are on the right. Let me open the terminal. Window controls are on the right. However, I can put those on the left also. Some people prefer them on the left because they're used to it. I prefer them on the right because I'm used to that. One of the new features in Ubuntu MATE 18.04 is enhanced support for high DPI, which means high dots per inch displays. For instance, a 4000 by 3000 dot display. If you don't have this, some of the bitmap icons and windows can appear rather small. And unfortunately, I don't have a high DPI, so I can't show you, but it has an auto detect option, a regular option, which is without IDPI, and high DPI, whether you auto detect it or not. This selects. Now, if, for instance, I click on this, it makes everything very large. So since I don't have high DPI, I wouldn't want to click on this, but at least that shows you what it does. And I'm going to leave it on auto detect. Now, for some reason, my panel has disappeared while I was going through all of that, so I'll have to deal with that. But in the meantime, you have fonts down here, and you have a choice of window managers. Now, this is the Marco Adaptive Compositor. There's also the Marco with Compton GPU compositor. You also have a choice of no compositor, the Marco Adaptive Compositor, of course, the Marco with Compton GPU compositor, and the Compass Advanced GPU Accelerated Desktop Effect compositor. As in the past, if you choose Compass, it does not give you the Compass configuration tools, but you can download those. Now I'm going to click on Marco No Compositor, and it says the window manager has been replaced. What I want to do now is get my panel back. So I'm going to go to Custom Mine. It doesn't do anything when I click on it. I'm going to change the panel. And then I'm going to go back to Custom Mine. And I get it back again. So there's a little unintended glitch there, but it's a problem that's easily solved. In addition to installing this on 2 external drives, I also have it installed on my internal drive, where I'm actually using it for production. And on my internal drive, I've installed my printers and scanners with no difficulty. With regard to the scanner, click on Videos. You'll see on one of my recent videos, it shows Ubuntu 18.04 scanner problems, how to fix them. The bug that first surfaced in Ubuntu 17.10 that affected some Epson, Brother, and Xerox scanners is still present in 18.04 with some minor differences. And in this video, I show the solution that was proposed on the initial bug report. So it was a little difficult, but I was able to install my scanner. Now I want to demonstrate something about the Kaya file manager that I think is new in this version. I made some test documents, and I'm going to select all of them, and then I'm going to click on Edit, Rename, and notice that there are 2 renames. There's one up here which is grayed out, and there's one down here which is not grayed out. So it makes a difference. Don't ask me why. I'm going to click on this one, and this is a bulk rename feature. So I can change several things. If I want to change case, I could change to uppercase, lowercase, which it was, title case, or unchanged. I'm going to leave that unchanged. I could insert something. For instance, I could insert new, N-E-W, space, and that's at position 0. But I could also insert something at position 5, for instance. Number, space. Or I could remove something. I could remove from 0 to 3. And all I have left is T1. So I'm going to replace test with the word item. And that applies to all of these. Now I've already got them enumerated. The only way this works is to prepend a number, so I'm going to click on that, and you can see that it prepends numbers to the existing item. It doesn't leave a space, however. So I'm going to go back to replace and replace test. Test beginning with a space. So anyway, that's a new feature. That's available in other file managers and other desktops, but I believe this is a first for Kaya. There are lots of new backgrounds. I'm just going to go through these very briefly, and I'll edit this so that you can see them in sequence. This, by the way, is a slideshow of sorts. It changes the background periodically. This is the one I have installed on my internal drive. So that's Ubuntu MATE 18.04. I highly recommend it. This is XRAM Tech. Thanks for watching.